Good morning. We're live. Seinfeld. Today's discussion is focused on the Strongbox. So, where would the group like to start? Elaine? So, what did you observe in Elaine?
She was very paranoid. Had some like delusional thoughts regarding her boyfriend.
Specifically, what?
That he was having an affair.
That Elaine's boyfriend was having an affair. Give me some for someone who hadn't seen the episode yet. Provide some details. So, let's say Elaine's boyfriend presents to practice with a chief complaint and brings up what is now the subplot of the Strongbox. What information would he provide us?
About Elaine?
Yeah.
Oh,
About this case.
I guess that she, I don't know, seemed on edge, like keeps talking about him being married, like things like, he was.
Right.
That was the surprise.
Yeah. So I think more of a clinical pearl, much more than anything you're going to find on your shelf exam, is that again, clinicians always have to keep an open mind with regard to the veracity of our patient's report, and in the most really sensational circumstances, things have been borne out true. So you really do have to keep an open mind. And I'm not going to say this live streamed, but we'll share some patient experiences, and it'll really convince you that in a slice of time during a 60-minute psychiatric evaluation, you have to be very careful to draw judgment as to whether or not something is reality-based or not. Right. So that's a clinical quote. And this episode just reinforces that, right? Even though it's really not bizarre to think that he might actually be married.
I'm curious who he would talk about his wife or like to a psychiatrist or to a therapist, right? Who would he be focused on?
Right.
Because we're focused on Elaine in this episode.
Yeah.
But that's not who knows his relationship.
Right.
You might not even mention it.
That's right. That's right. And that's the other, I think, teaching point. And this can be reflected on the shelf exam in that people with paranoia in general, maybe a psychotic disorder, even a cluster A personality, tend not to present the clinical practice with a chief complaint of paranoia, right? So, so you're going to have to draw that from the clinical vignette. Individuals in this case might actually present it if psychiatrically anxiety and depression caused by, for instance, in a cluster A situation, difficulty with relationships or being concerned about and indifferent to the evaluation by others, but very unlikely to say, I'm here for my paranoid personality disorder, or I'm here because I'm hypervigilant. They're not going to say that. Hence why I even kind of framed this discussion that Elaine accompanies him. The collateral may actually provide that perspective. So clinical pearl as well as one that can in fact be reflected on a vignette, on a shelf exam. So from Elaine's situation, you use the word paranoid. I use the word hypervigilant. Does she have obsessive compulsive disorder, these obsessions, or does she have a psychotic process or these delusions? And this would be a delusion of persecution, right? Oh, I'm sorry, no, take it back. I mean, or maybe jealousy. It might be a mixed delusion. So we'd have to tease that out a little bit more. Nonetheless, what differentiates the obsession from the delusion? What differentiates our single best diagnosis being within the anxiety spectrum versus the psychotic spectrum?
Anxiety.
Okay, so let's say,
but maybe I'm wrong.
that's not right. I mean, certainly there are aspects of, for instance, obsessive compulsive disorder, including compulsive behaviors, that certainly would allow the clinician to lean towards one versus the other. Unfortunately, in the circumstance I'm going to paint for you, the patient says, no, I'm not anxious, and no, I don't compulsively wash my hands or engage in any type of ritualistic behaviors. So, and that happens, right? So now what?
It's hard because there's some basis in reality.
Right.
And that's what I think would be hard to differentiate in like a intake.
Yeah. I mean, prior to 2013, one of the things that we did look at, the APA did endorse, was this idea of bizarre versus non-bizarre. And in cases like this, where if the clinician asks themselves, could this actually happen? The answer is a definitive yes.
Right.
And even in cases when, and we're going to rewrite the end of this episode, that it's not happening, and we have that validated. it still could happen. It's a non-bizarre thought.
Mhm.
Different from a bizarre thought that when the individual or the clinician asks, can this actually happen? It's a definitive no, right? No, this can't happen, right? It breaks the laws of physics, whatever. That could be helpful, but certainly the APA is going away from that designation, right? So, the other thing I want you to look at here is insight, right? If there's a level of insight, doc, I know the way this sounds, and I know that this is not true, but I can't get the thought out of my head. That's an obsession. Now, unfortunately, clinical vignette might paint this scenario as such. Real life, probably not. But the point is that whether you're a test taker or you're a clinician behind a desk, you want to try to gauge the individual's level of insight. Because if insight is there, you're more likely going to be looking at an anxiety process. And with absent insight, especially one that is pervasive and consistent or chronic, likely a psychotic process. And in the end, it's none of the above. It is reality-based. It was a non-bizarre delusion to begin with, and then at the end, it's revealed that it's not a delusion at all. Anything else going on with Elaine? Other than teaching us about anxiety, psychotic spectrum?
Do you think her past experience with a relationship are what makes her so hypervigilant?
Absolutely, absolutely, and positively, right? So, and what if she presented for chief complaint of blank, and she began talking about the season prior when she met so-and-so, and the season prior to that when she met so-and-so. As a clinician, as you see this pattern of pervasive behavior, what's a thought that comes in your mind in terms of, okay, let me go back to this season and ask her about blank. Where are you going to go with this?
Personality disorder?
Well, what would that could be part of it, but where you're going to actually begin to validate that or authenticate that? What's the episode that's going to buy you this? I want to say diagnosis, but certainly this topic or this issue that eventually you're going to have to address with her. Where do people actually have their initial intimate relationships modeled?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Does anybody here remember the episode in which, I think there's 2 total, where they cast her father?
Also, I can remember one, like, her parents show up. I
Yeah.
know George's
Yeah,
parents.
George
Jerry's
is
parents,
they're
like,
around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. they're around.
Yeah, I think it's only in 2 episodes, right? And I might be overstating it. It might be just the one. I think it's the jacket, right? And there, I mean, you get he doesn't need to be in anymore, right? Only one. Yeah. So, so yes, her pattern of relationships, including the primordial relationship with dad, and they cast this character perfectly to understand why she would be so hypervigilant. He's incredibly emotionally distant and cold. Yeah, so cold that when she's late, and therefore she leaves Jerry and George at the restaurant to meet with him. Jerry leaves. Jerry gets out of there.
I see her attaching with him.
Yeah.
Mm.
Anything else with Elaine? But I know I'm going to say this, and you guys are going to stare at me blankly. And if one of you doesn't, it's going to make my Friday. So just prepping you. The actor, and I apologize for not knowing his name. The actor that is cast as Elaine's father is the same actor that is the boss in Reservoir Dogs. So we have Tarantino. Okay, there's my weekend. My weekend is me. And by the way, it's a very similar character. I think after the episode, after the restaurant, he actually goes and puts together this team. Like, it's a very similar. All right. Any other characters? Seinfeld.
Jerry Kramer, subplot, Jerry and Kramer. About this, like, hiding this key everywhere, taking your favorite belongings, but not actually locking them up at all. You know, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Keeping animals up out of there.
Yep.
There's a lot going on there.
Mhm. You know, the first relationship we ever see forged in the situational comedy is the one between Jerry and Kramer. Now, we're given background then that Jerry knew George from high school. But what we observe, season 1, episode 1, is the meeting between Jerry and Kramer. That's the very first relationship that we see actually come together. And Larry David reminds us of that in the finale, when there's a flashback to that very first scene, season 1, episode 1. And then since then, even though we do see aspects of Kramer's apartment, I'll make a statement about that in a second. The vast majority of the interaction between these two friends occurs in Jerry's apartment, and the pathological character is Kramer. I mean, Kramer beats to the marches to the beat of his own drum. He has aspects of cluster A personality, and his personality pervades Jerry's space, and we see it again here. I mean, he has this. He's got this inner reality of what the meaning behind this key is. It doesn't matter what breaking news is on TV. It doesn't matter. We hardly ever see him work, hold down a job. All those things that we would expect to be the day-to-day goings on of a person, which is, by the way, what this series is about, is totally absent from this character's life and reality. Yet he's not psychotic, right? Never hears things, never, no real delusions. I'm sure we could select here and there and have that discussion with some selected episodes, but really a cluster A personality, and a cluster A personality that is really in Jerry's space. It's a very interesting interaction. The few times that we do see the inside of his apartment, Larry David gives us only a very limited glimpse, and there's always some oddity with it. The easy example of this is the episode that's titled The Merv Griffin Show, where the entire set of the Merv Griffin Show is rebuilt, reconstructed within his apartment. So we really don't even get to see his apartment. We get to see the stage of the old Merv Griffin Show. So even when we do see Kramer's apartment on the inside, usually we really don't see Kramer's apartment. We see him in the shower baking lettuce. We see him putting guests and visitors to New York City in large drawers. Just really odd stuff. Nothing we would expect when we actually view somebody's apartment like we see Jerry's, like every single episode. Anything else about the interaction between Jerry and Kramer beyond the typical when it comes to the key?
Just in how he hides it, and in like most ridiculous places that everyone would find.
Right.
Yeah, and again, getting to cluster A traits, when any reasonable person would stumble upon the key, right? The buzzer doesn't work. Who wouldn't look? We have a character, Kramer, that interprets it through his own filter, right? You just can't stop yourself, Gary. Right? Right. Again, that's aspects of paranoid personality, right? And while I don't think that Kramer has paranoid personality disorder, I think you need 4 criteria towards the diagnosis. I really think he's more of a schizotypal spectrum, but we're reminded that these traits do tend to cluster. So people with another cluster A personality other than paranoid can, and you often do, incorporate paranoid traits, and that's on display here. Right. And
It's actually impressive he has many personalities, so
That's true.
so bizarre, and like typically people in that personality cluster do tend to isolate more and like be less social. It's pretty social.
definitely, only with those 4 though.
Yeah.
Right, because when we hear of all of his other interactions, and we'll include Newman in that too, but when we hear about all of his other interactions, it's per patient report, it's self-report, and I think all of us may have at least one time considered that none of these people are real, right? None of them really showed up when Larry David marched every character up to that witness stand in the finale, the 2-part finale. And there's even one episode, and I keep on referencing this episode for Kramer, and in discussions about Kramer, I'm going to have to figure out what the actual name of the episode is. But Jerry turns to Kramer and says, all these people you mentioned, how come we never met them? right? So even Jerry suggests that they're a figment of his imagination, and that really gets to the defense mechanism of fantasy. And in Kramer's case, age inappropriate fantasy. Right? So fantasy as a defense, the autistic retreat into an inner world to protect people from the imminent threat they deem from the real world, is normal when age appropriate, right? So tea parties and imaginary friends, completely appropriate when you're 3 or 4. When you're 33 or 34, that's not the case, right? That could be the core to a schizoid personality disorder, and with any eccentricity of behavior, perhaps even a schizotypal personality, right? Fantasy. Other characters in the Strongbox you want to discuss in the interaction? Quattro.
That's a George. Always George. Trying to break up with this woman, and she just says no, and he's like, okay, and yeah, he just keeps letting that happen.
So what's that about?
I'm trying to figure out, like, if it was like a low self-esteem.
That's
thing.
I don't think
Like-
there's any way you could discuss this without mentioning it.
Yeah.
So let's go down that road. So what's part of the evaluation of self-esteem? I mean, I don't want no metrics or anything, but what's part of this discussion? Some social learning theory.
I guess a little bit of how he views himself. Sorry. I guess a little bit of how
Oh,
George
sorry,
views
I'm
himself
so-
generally, and how
I
he was like
apologize,
conditioned
I
by
have
his
you on mute.
parents. He was definitely not raised in a loving, supportive environment that praised him for any of his successes. He was constantly like put down or compared to other neighborhood. There's like the classic like Lloyd Braun, like you're never going to be like him. So I think his self-worth is not necessarily the greatest.
That's
So I do
that's
feel like
ultra
his
polite, by the
girlfriends in
way.
this are a bit gaslighty, and will kind of just say like, no, even though he'll like give out like justifications and try to stand with his guns, like they really are also just denying anything that he says and any like grounds that any of his feelings could be real.
And going off that criticalness and the comparison is a big part of how you create up your self-esteem, right? Like, there's a lot of downward comparisons of people you grew up with or people you know.
Yeah.
And then his self-critic is very strong.
Absolutely.
Very passive.
Yes. Yes, he is. Yeah, and you know, the clinical term of external locus of control is sometimes used to describe this process. These comparisons that we then internalize. I think what Larry David does in this episode is that he really personifies that. I mean, what better example, over the top example of an external locus of control, but when you break up with someone and they tell you no. I mean, she has total control over that dynamic, external locus. So from his perspective, from his inner experience, he doesn't consider himself broken up. That's correct terminology, right? Because he can't. And again, I'm not sure this is truly congruent with reality and what a person in real clinical practice would necessarily endure. I don't know if anyone ever would think that they're not broken up, but very symbolically, this is an external locus of control. This is a person whose entire self or evaluation of oneself is dictated by how others perceive them. Right? We're seeing this more and more and more because of social media, right? I mean, it's not who you are, it's how many likes you get.
It reminds me of like that wheel of power and control we can kind of talk about in domestic violence situations.
Yes.
It's very emotionally useful a lot of the time.
Yeah, very consistent with that as well. Yep. So never, I mean, there's really no episode at all that would provide any information that there was physical abuse in the Costanza house, but the emotional abuse can definitely lend to that. And I don't think anybody has would have any objection to talking about George's early life experiences as being emotionally abusive. Right? I mean, his parents are emotionally abusive in his 30s. So, and we do get some flashbacks, which, by the way, this is the prompt that I always bring up. If anybody wants to partner, contacting Netflix, a young George Costanza spinoff, it would be a can't miss. I couldn't even fathom what a 7-year-old George Costanza, like young Shelton, young Costanza would be an absolute smash hit. I don't know who would be cast, but it would be there's no way that would ever miss. Would not want to go back and look at that. All right, we have 5 minutes left. Any final thoughts, any other observations anyone's made that you want to discuss? No, we're good. All right, we'll leave it here. Give us a couple of minutes, logging off, logging back on for our table rounds, and we'll catch everybody else on the other Zoom link. Thank you, everybody.